Yo, 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 what's poppin'? I am your host, King Ralph, here with the homie and my co-host, the homie Kai. And you are now
Hey,
watching
hey,
Juke
hey.
Sports Show. Yeah!
Woo!
Woo! It's the greatest sports podcast on YouTube
Yes, sir. Yes,
in the
sir.
world.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And we
sir.
fresh off of an amazing Super Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
as well as I think that Rihanna did a good job. Rihanna's never really been the choreography, dance numbers, high energy type performances anyway.
Yeah.
I think she did a good job with that as well. But how you been, bro?
Man, well, yesterday I was kind of down for the count because I was still recovering from about 25 to 30 wings I had on the Super Bowl. And some sweet bro, I had some wings from Costco, man. I don't know what type of wings they were, but they were fire. They had like some type of sweet chili sauce, man. I was like,
Oh yeah.
ooh. So it was one of them joints where I just kept going back, and then like 10 wings became 20, and 20 became 30. So
So is
yeah, other
that
than
your
that,
favorite Super Bowl food?
actually, I'm gonna say yeah when they're cooked right. So
Uh,
yeah.
I'm more of
But
a
other than that,
pizza.
I'm good, man.
I'm
I'm
more of a
good.
pizza guy.
Oh, I love pizza. I love pizza. Yeah, I do love pizza,
Yeah,
but
if
I
I had
don't
to
like
pick
pizza
one,
on
I'm
pizza.
definitely going with the pizza.
Yeah, yeah. But
And then
anyway,
before we get started, make sure we send a little shout out to our sponsors. We haven't been in the studio in a minute, but we still rock with them. If you want to do any photo shoots, music videos, podcasts like what you're watching, call the number on the bottom of the screen, 707 Fit Boxer. And make sure you go on all of our socials as well if you want unbiased breakdowns and analysis of everything NBA related. We got 2 weeks till the All Star break. I think 2 weekends from now, honestly.
mhm.
We got the trade deadline just wrapping up. We're going to jump into that today. But if you want to get any laughs, get your funny bones out, make sure you follow me. I'm doing some real funny IG and Facebook reels. But just on TikTok, Twitch, as well as Instagram at KYNGRALPH. Make sure you add an underscore for Twitter. Make sure you go on the social for as far as the podcast itself on Instagram at J.U.K. Sports Show. We have now changed the YouTube page to at Joint Universal Creatives with a K. Or you can just type in J.U.K. Media is another way to search that up. The name on Facebook will be changing as well from the He Say channel to the Joint Universal Creatives page. Let's get started, man.
All right, all right.
So, MLB has been facing the stigma of the game being too long for a very long time. They brought
Mm-hmm.
it up. It's been a thing since for the last couple of years. They started during the pandemic, doing in the MLB in the major leagues a ghost runner rule. When a game gets past, they get to the extra innings. It goes longer than nine innings, and the game is tied up. Going into extra innings, they will put an extra person on the bases.
Yep, on I think second base, right?
Yes, and they put
Mm-hmm.
someone on second base. I'm gonna put a little clip up, but it's pretty much the last time that it was done. Coming out of the pandemic, the Angels as well as the Athletics go to extra innings. Oh, I think his name Ohani. He gets on second base. Now,
Yeah.
as the play goes on, he terrible base running, but it is one of those things that it has shortened the game a significant amount of times in
Yeah.
the past 2 seasons that they've been doing it. It has the game has ended in the 10th inning 73% of the time. So are you in
Mm.
favor of this rule?
Actually, I am in favor of the rule. I feel like anything that will appease the fans in terms of when they have an outcry for things going too long, I think it's good because the whole key with sports, Ralph, is an excitement factor, right? If you're gonna lose interest, then then why actually not make a change? You're supposed to actually listen to the fans and listen to your players of your organization. I like it because I feel like it speeds the game up. That's one. And I was talking about kind of like I was kind of comparing. It's two different sports, but I was comparing it to the NFL and the overtime rules, where if you get the first, or I said if you're the first possession, if you score a touchdown, it's automatically end game. But if you score a field goal, then the other team has a chance to get the ball back and score points. Also, I did see here though, interestingly enough, and I'll swing it back to you, that they're saying that the automatic runner placed at second base in extra innings does not count as an earned run for the pitcher. Because when you talk about pitchers and
Yeah.
allowing runs and etc. But the runner gets credit for a run scored, but not a time on base, and thus does not receive a boost to his on base percentage. So the batter who drives in the automatic runner is actually credited with an RBI. So pitchers don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, look at my
Right.
ERA. So
Right.
it's
Right. Right.
always, people just getting into baseball, ERAs, earned runs, and so you want to keep those things down. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not against the rule. How about you?
I'm very much in favor of it, bro, because it's a sport I was really good at, a sport I've always loved as a kid, and
Mm,
even in my adult years. My team hasn't been that good, so it's been like I haven't been paying as much attention as I
right.
would have when they were. But at the same time, there's so much good young talent out there that I would like to see everybody be able to get their shine. And them baseball contracts is crazy. So for them to not be that popular, but still getting those contracts
Right.
like that, I'm definitely in favor of anything that pushes the agenda forward. Two
Okay.
minute drill, man. Before we get talking about the Super Bowl,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
we got the USFL coming up in April. Me and
Mm.
one of my homies, shout out to the homie Marv, he comments and comes on the show sometimes. But me and him talk about it all the time. It was actually really good football to be watched um, at the time. Like, it is one of those things where it's a good substitute. It's not the same as NFL because the talent
No,
level is not the same, but at the same time, it's still good football. It's fun to watch football, and so how important is the USFL to the culture?
I believe it is actually very important to the culture. One, it gives people an alternate viewing experience for the NFL from the NFL, but also you get a chance to see pro players and players getting the opportunity to showcase their talents and still get the opportunity to play the game that they love. I mean, look at a guy like Johnny Manziel, right? And we got a chance to see, what he was able to uh, when they were talking about him going to the going playing in the USFL, and so we had the XFL, which I believe Ralph was it Vince? Wasn't it Vince Mc the WWE guy who tried
Yeah,
to
Vince
try that?
McMahon.
Yeah, and that was a disaster. That just didn't work out. But I just think that the games personally are fun, right? And so it kind of goes back to me once again with the excitement factor. We are just talking about the excitement factor with the MLB, and so I think that this is important. I think it's actually important to have different leagues and things of that nature, just like the NBA has a G League. I know it's a little bit different because you talk about developmental, but also I'm gonna switch it up to this. It gives people an opportunity for coaching opportunities as well,
Right.
right? It's like, hey, I was able to coach at this level, and so it's another docket on somebody's resume if you're looking at a coaching experience that isn't necessarily like an intramural or something like that, right? And so you actually get to learn what it's like to be around those types of players and build up a resume and what team chemistry looks like and talent looks like. So I actually think that a USFL is really important to the culture. So yeah.
I think it's really important as well, man. I'm agree with you on that as well because I think that when you think about it as like we just got done talking about baseball. Baseball has three different levels
Yeah.
before you even get to the minors. I mean, to the major leagues. And so I think with football, there is no other major AAA, single A, double A. So you either go Canadian football. We used to have Euro League, which
Mm,
is I've heard about them bringing that back because of the expansion and the game being played in London and how it's
right.
being received in Europe. But I think that now you have something like you have the G League, you have where you can go to Spain, you can go play in Israel, you can go play in China, you can go play in Cuba and Mexico. But when it comes to football, it's really not much you have outside of that being in the NFL. And if you don't make it there, now there's a lot of opportunities, but it also gives an opportunity for a team like Birmingham, Alabama to get a team and be able to see major league or even professional football,
Mhm.
regardless of it not being the top of the line. It's still something that kids and an opportunity for you to be able to see some just some excitement in your city that you don't normally get. Like before, we had teams, we had the XFL, and I remember being a teenager and thinking those games were so much fun.
Yeah, yeah.
And even like I want to say it was the USFL before, and we had Dante Culpepper
Yep.
was our quarterback, and we won. We won
Mm.
the championship that year. So I think that there's memories to be had while also giving coaches opportunities
Yeah.
where you could get someone like, let's just say it hasn't happened yet, but let's just say you have an NFL player, former NFL player, wants to get into coaching, but he's not getting that top of the line job.
Yeah,
All right, he
like
could go
Michael Vick, I think, at one point. Yeah.
exactly like he can go and coach a team like this or in a league like this and get an opportunity to work his way up where he doesn't have to start in college or start in high school. He can start in this type of league. So I think it's very important to the culture. And so next up, before we get to the Super Bowl,
Super Bowl.
but the 2000 Ravens did a ESPN 30 for 30 documentary, very good documentary.
Mm.
And they talked about it on there. There was some QB change that didn't need to be made. Jamal Lewis gets hurt.
Mm.
Texas become an expansion league or new expansion team,
Yeah.
and then they just decide to not bring certain people back. In your mind, as a fan of that and knowing football during that time, how many Super Bowls should they have won?
But not being biased and just looking at it objectively and then remembering that time, even as a kid when I was like in fourth grade, right? Two. Because people have to understand it's hard to win Super Bowls. It's hard to win back-to-back Super Bowls.
Right.
And Ray Lewis had mentioned one time, I think, about the Legion of Boom missing their moment when they lost to the Patriots and they actually got back to Super Bowl, right? And they had the game won, but coaching happened with the Ravens. What happens prior to the actual regular season games actually does matter. I know people say, "Oh, preseason and stuff," but I mean like health, things of that nature. Losing a guy, a young running back, Jamal Lewis, who I believe in '03 would go to rush for 2,000 yards in a season, which is amazing, right? But the division that they were in, the physicality that they were in, Ralph, having a team like the Titans, who people have to remember, the Titans were really like a top dog. You know what I'm saying? They
Right.
had
Right.
been to a Super Bowl. They lost, but they had been to a Super Bowl and they weren't going anywhere. A Jags with Mark Brunell, uh,
Yeah.
uh, Bengals, even a Steelers who didn't have a great quarterback at that time, but they did have Jerome Bettis. They had the defensive guys on that squad. So I think losing a guy like Jamal Lewis early in the season, right before the season really started, right in camp, and then obviously you lose some better veteran guys, and then Jermaine Lewis, who I talked to you about before the show, he was a kick returner and he had a great story, right? You lose some of these guys that had really good stories with them, and there was a lot of chemistry, there was a lot of camaraderie, and it's just really really hard. And then the biggest thing is a quarterback change. Elvis Gerbach, right? Elvis Gerbach, he was actually someone who wound up being a Pro Bowler, and obviously you know because being a Raiders fan, Gerbach was a Chiefs quarterback, right? But he was in a Pro Bowler with the Ravens, and ever since that Super Bowl, guys, the Baltimore Ravens they had constant quarterback turnover. You had Gerbach, you had Tony Banks, you had a Chris Redman, a name people may not remember. Kyle Bowler, the worst quarterback to ever play the game of football. So you had all these. I had to throw that in there, man. Hey, you know what's funny, man? I'm gonna end it with this. I made this joke to shout out to our homie Tar. I said Zach Wilson looks like at the draft, right? This is before I saw Zach Wilson play. I said Zach Wilson looks like Kyle Bowler if he used his powers for good. Then he gets to the NFL, and I'm like, man, he still can't play. I'm not gonna call anyone trash because I don't want to say those words about players and human beings. You know what I'm saying? But he struggled, at the quarterback position with the Jets, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just feel like we should just kept, like you said, we should have kept Dilfer. And I actually wasn't really in favor. I was a kid at the time, but I was in no favor to lose what we had, right? Right. And my dad to this day, shout out to him. He said we never should have got rid of Dilfer because Dilfer was at least competent.
Right.
So I say respectfully and objectively, we should have won at least two Super Bowls.
And I think that one thing about Dilfer is he had respect of his peers,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think that that's one of those things you can't buy.
Yeah.
But on to the next one, man. The Super Bowl was a great game,
Yeah.
but And before I really get into my opinion of what happened,
Yeah.
there's a holding call. Yes, it was a holding call, but at the same time, James Bradbury goes on to say that he definitely held. He was hoping he would get away with it, but it is one of those things that the conversation has to be had because it did change the game, and it had a profound impact on what happened. As you see on the screen, he's holding, and I'm not going to say that he's not,
Mm-hmm.
but in this moment to decide the Super Bowl, did this call have to be made?
So I'm a preface my comments by saying this for all my neo soul to early 2000s neo soul R&B fans out there who may know of the group, and also late 90s. They don't know of the group called Floetry. They have a song called "Say Yes." Well, in this case, I'm gonna say no. Sorry, Floetry. I cannot cannot. There's no say yes. There's no all you have to do is say yes. In this case, everyone learn how to say no in life, man. N-O. No, Ralph. No, no, no. They did not have to make this call. They chose to make this call, right? Just like with some of them Patriot playoff games, there's some questionable calls where we're like, yo, versus the Jags, did you have to make a call, right? They didn't have to make the call. And by the clip that we have, it actually kind of looks like a subtle hug. You know what I'm saying, right?
Right.
I mean, I don't really know old boy's arm strength. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I wouldn't have made that call, man. Let them play because you let them play pretty much for the most part of the game. But we'll get into obviously later on, like, was that the reason why they lost the game? But I personally don't believe that the Referees of America Association or the Buffalo Wild Wings refs had to make that call at that time. So I'm going to say no. That's just me.
And I agree. I think that, and you alluded to it, is that if
Yeah.
you could go to different points in early in the game. There's a moment. Juju is another making a cross. I think it's on third and 9. I believe is what it is. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a throw across the middle of the field. Juju Smith-Schuster gets turned around,
Mm.
and they didn't call it. Then early in that same drive, Pacheco kick out wide, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
holding call that's not being called.
Yep.
And so it just leads you to go like, all right, bro, like at some point, what's really going on here? There's been a lot of conversations about the NFL script
Mm.
because Arian Foster said that the NFL is scripted. Now, someone being a top 5 running back of his time when, at his peak,
Yeah. Yeah.
his word is going to mean something. So, regardless if it's true or not, and
Uh-huh.
what proof did he really show? I don't think he showed anything, or he just came out and made a statement. So I think, but then when you see stuff like this,
Uh-huh.
it leads you to think like, all right, like, is it scripted? Why did they call that one if they didn't call all the rest of the stuff? And especially in that moment,
Mm.
because although it is a hold, it leads you to think like, all right, when the throw that he made, are we really rewarding him on that throw, or is it just, or are we just going to take it as, well, he knew it was a call, so he just threw it. So they'll look at
Right.
that side of the football.
Right. Right.
And it's just so many different questions to be asked without really having that many answers. And the one thing that I hate is that it was a great game.
Oh, yeah. It was a great game.
We
I didn't like the
had
ending.
we had Jalen Hurts almost with 400 yards of offense,
Mm-hmm.
four touchdowns,
Mm-hmm.
and then that fumble is what he's gonna remember.
Right.
But then on top of that, we have the conversation of Mahomes had a gutty performance,
Mm.
and
Carved him up in
and
the
there was
second half.
carved him up in the second half.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy had that offense clicking on all cylinders in the second half, although they didn't have the ball for long.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of remembering all of that, we just remember this holding call. And that's the part for me that I can't stand as a fan and as a former athlete myself, Nobody wants to remember. Like the athletes do not want you to remember the game for the referee,
Nah.
and no fan wants to remember the game for a call either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that it's not that I disagree that it was a holding call. It's just the timing of it. You let them play all game. Just let them play.
Right. Because we talk about like we can look at the 49ers versus Ravens game. 49ers like, oh, that was I thought it was a good defense, but 49ers fans see it differently. And remember, it was one play, one stop, right? To
Right.
Crabtree in the back corner end zone. And I knew that wasn't going to go because that was one. I mean, we always talk about like with Kaepernick, that back shoulder fade, man. It always was getting batted or getting intercepted in his career. So I was like, yeah, people like, oh, he was holding. So and that was like the last play of the Super Bowl, right? So
Right.
those types of plays they can decipher the outcome of the game. And if you make a call like that, then that affects a lot of people's legacy. Ed Reed, Ray Lewis doesn't go out on top. A lot of different things
Right.
that happen. So even though I believe there was a conspiracy in that Super Bowl because Beyonce sucked up all the electricity in the building that day. Remember, we were about to blow the brakes off the Niners. But anyway, not to make it about my squad. I agree, Ralph. I definitely agree.
And next up, we got the fast break, man. Little short,
Fast break,
little
like John
topics.
Morant.
We got to get a
Fast
theme
break.
song for the. Hey,
Yeah, I'm like,
Rob, theme song.
yeah.
But it's Bronny James. He's been moving up the ESPN high school prospect rankings. I disagree
Yes,
with him being
sir.
ranked over a specific person
Mm-hmm.
going to Memphis, but is and used to be his former teammate too. But is Bronny James overrated or is he being underrated?
Mm-hmm. See, here's the thing, Ralph. I don't like calling people overrated, all right? But I don't like calling people underrated who I don't feel are underrated, right?
Right.
I feel like he's underappreciated. But anyway, I think he's a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. I think he's a tad bit overrated, to be honest with you. He doesn't jump off the screen. Production at the high school level, different things of the nature. Here's the truth. People want the truth, or should I say, my truth, my reality in terms of how I see it, right? From what I watch from the game tape, and also what the scouts have been saying, etc. Bronny James does Bronny James, it's not necessarily even the skill set, Ralph, and I think you'll understand where I'm coming from because some people I can't have this conversation with. It's the fact that his progression, his linear progression from year to year, in terms of the areas of improvement that he needs to improve on, he's been able to do that from the point where he's come from. Well, obviously, you would hope that happens with any top prospect or whatever, but I feel like he didn't really have a head start outside of the fact that LeBron's quote unquote LeBron James is his father, right? But he has no bearing on whether or not who his father is, right? So I
Right.
hate when people say, "Oh, well, LeBron's your father. You don't deserve this." The fact of the matter is, right? He has offers from UCLA, Oregon, USC, but what he does well on the court is he's actually a really good passer. He has a long range ball, deep ball, and he has a smooth jump shot in shooting it. Has anyone actually watched him shoot? He has a smooth jumper, right? So he
Yeah.
has those different things. Also, the intangibles and the things that his teammates, his coaches, and even the scouts have said. They said he's unselfish. He has a high basketball IQ. He has a high motor, and defensively, he's willing to play man to man defense. I was trying to actually find his stats, right? He averages 1.8 steals per game, right? The latest stats I found was from January. I want to say like January 26th. I was looking up max preps because when I played high school ball, that's where we used to keep our stats and all that kind of stuff. Because I couldn't find anything on ESPN. He used to average like 14 points per game, 1.8 steals at the time. I'm not quite sure if anyone has the anything within February, whatever, but that's what they were showing. And so it's pretty much he has all those little intangibles and he does those things well. Whereas if you can shoot and you can play defense, then he could be anywhere, possibly getting drafted late, or even if he played in the G League for a year. Because remember the G League is an option for him. You don't just have to go straight to, uh NBA or whatever and blah blah blah. So when I look at him from the film and also what he actually does well, he does those things well, Ralph. Like he legit does those things well. And so I don't actually want to say that he can't play at the NBA level because that's really what people really want to know, right? And another thing that he does really good is he is good at coming off screens and he has confidence, something that coaches can instill in their players, but also something that you naturally have to have. If you
Yeah,
notice, whenever he plays, he's the game has slowed down for him from years past, and so I like that. He's more confident in his decision making. He doesn't hold on to the ball as long as he used to. I would say the only areas that he really needs to improve in is pick and roll. Also, his handle, he lacks a creative handle. He's not turning the ball over, but his handle's not really going to break anyone down. That's one thing I noticed. He doesn't have a really quick first step. He's good in transition, but he's not the strongest finisher at the rim. So that's also interesting. And they say LeBron said he's about 6'4". He's not like 6'4", whatever. They're always gonna heighten and stuff. Some people say 6'3". He really looks 6'2". Everyone that says 6'2", 190, he looks like he's 6'2", but he might be 6'3", and he still has a chance to grow. So other than that, he pretty much what I said, like he has those tools, Ralph, where you would like that if you're a coach, someone who's going to play man to man defense, high motor, plays with confidence, can shoot the three effectively. If he goes to, I want to say, I'm gonna end it with this. If he goes to, I want to say it's Oregon, I believe, that has like the top guy. They got a point guard. He could potentially learn from him or play off him as a combo guard because that's what he is, right? And so I think that he might benefit from that. So I'm really interested just to see where he is at, but I don't think he's a bad player at all. So I'll let you go, man. Yeah,
not at all, man. I think that he gets a lot of hate because of who his dad is, but people
thank
also
you.
got to realize that his build and makeup,
It's
just
different.
as an athlete, is different. So he had to low key get it
Yeah,
out the mud because he didn't get that height and athleticism like Bryce. Bryce is
facts.
already 6'5", 6'6", and looks like LeBron at one point where Bronny had to
Yeah,
learn to handle, learn to shoot. All the intangible things that we talk about
hmm,
when that LeBron lacks, that one dribble pull up going left, that
yes,
that cross step back type of thing where instead of standing still stepping back, that's where LeBron would go. But he doesn't have the footwork that Bronny has. So their games are just completely different.
they're different. Yeah, yeah.
Next up, your boy and the Pelicans out here looking real bad, but Zion is coming off of an injury, and just when you
Yeah.
thought he was coming back, he re-aggravates the injury.
Hmm.
So what is the level of concern that the Pelicans should have?
7. The reason why I say 7 is because they're a playoff team. They're a playoff team. They have youth. They have uh, defensive wing and Herb Jones. They have Brandon Ingram, a 3-level scorer. Maybe I'll play that at 6, Ralph, but I say 7 more so for the fact of what the other teams have done. You know for a fact that they were my sleeper team. I was high on the Pelicans. I thought their ceiling this year was the Western Conference Finals. I also like Denver Western Conference Finals, but that's that's assuming that Zion Williamson, a 27 point per game scorer, a freak of nature, will be a part of that pairing because you have a Zion, you have Ingram, and that pairing, and it opens everything up. Then you have CJ, a certified closer, a veteran, and he has his podcast and he talks about the places where they expect to go. You have Alvarado, the pesky defender, but you need Zion, and I say 7 because it's not just a knee injury or anything like that. Because obviously we know about his weight; it's a hamstring injury. And anyone who knows about soft tissue injuries, when you get a soft tissue injury, those things can linger. The hamstring can linger. And so now we're getting, oh, he's having a setback. He's expected to miss multiple weeks post All Star break when you only have what, like less than 30 games or whatnot to go for the season after the All Star break. That for me personally gives me cause to pause because I'm looking at a team like the Phoenix Suns having a KD now at the 4, right? There we go. And you kept Aiton. I'm looking at a team like the Denver Nuggets and what they did at the trade deadline. I'm looking at I know the Clippers or whatever, but they're still there with Kawhi back, right? I'm looking at all these different teams, Mavs with Kyrie. So it's like you get a soft tissue hamstring injury or lingering since January 6th, on top of the fact that other teams have gotten better, then I think that you're not playing from a place of strength like you were early in the season. At the 4 seed, now you're coming from, I think they're what, the 6 or 7 seed. Correct me if I'm wrong. You would have to play one of those top echelon teams, and I think that could give you some problems. So right now, I'm going to go with the 7 because we also have the history of Zion Williamson just missing last season with extended period of time with an injury as well. So that's for me. I wanted to say 6, but I knocked it up to a 7 because of those teams that gotten better on paper at the trade deadline. So
I say it's anywhere from an 8 to a 9 because
yeah.
and I always say this. Yes, you need your others to
Mm-hmm.
play well, but in the playoffs,
Yep.
when when all hell breaks loose,
Role players become
plays break
starters.
down,
Yep.
you're not winning championships based on your role players. You need your stars to be stars. That
Mm-hmm.
27 got to go to 32. If CJ averaging 18, he got to be 21, 22 years
Yep.
points. And it's like your season averages got to go up 4 or 5, 8 even if you're a superstar. But
Mm-hmm.
just for the sake of being an all-star, star level player, you got to be 4 or 5 points or statistics above whatever it is that your average is. And that's where I think that this is why it's so important because you're going to need him because he is a matchup nightmare offensively.
Yeah. So get well soon, Zion.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Get well soon.
And
All right.
next up, man, um, he gets the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Petty, my homeboy, Money Man. I can't stand him, honestly. Watching him walk irritates me.
I don't blame you.
Um, but
I'm a Lamar guy, so you got to know that.
where does Mahomes rank amongst all-time QB lists? And he balled
So
out, man. Like us, like
he balled out.
for like looking at his stats, he didn't do nothing crazy, but
Mm-hmm.
he completed 21 out of 27, threw for 182 yards, 3 touchdowns. But it was a dink and dunk type of game where he had to be
Mm-hmm.
more methodical rather than relying on the big play since Tyreek Hill is left. And so at this point, he has showed that he doesn't need that top to take the top off the defense. And so coming up next, we got a bunch of the highlights from
Of
the
the Super
Super
Bowl.
Bowl. But
All right.
yeah, we see some of these throws, these touchdown throws, creative plays. But to you, where does he rank among the all-time quarterback list?
So I know that me and you, we're gonna vastly disagree on this, and that's perfectly fine. That's the nature of sports conversations, and that's the beauty of our show. Um, After that Chargers game, I told myself I'm never going to like. I'm gonna be objective, obviously, but I'm not gonna like doubt this dude anymore, bro. When he had all his receivers down and like he won with Kelsey, and I also give Andy Reid credit, but then I have him in my top 3, bro. I know, I have my top 3. I mean, some people think that's blasphemous, by the way. Some people say he's already number 2. So, like, one of my homies, like, he's number 2 behind Brady. I'm like, all right, whatever, cool. That's your list. That's not mine, but he's number 3. I got him number 3. Only because I believe as a talent, you guys are gonna laugh at this, but Brett Favre, as a quarterback, not a person, but as a quarterback, was my favorite quarterback coming up along with Mike. And I said Pat Mahomes is just Brett Favre with a brain. Not saying that Brett Favre wasn't cold. Like Brett Favre was cold. He's the only quarterback to win 3 consecutive MVPs, right, in a row, and a Super Bowl uh, in one of those between that time. But like Pat Mahomes, man, like it's the fact that I really believed, and I told you I believe the Eagles were built to beat the Chiefs. Built to beat the Chiefs, and to score 24 straight points in the second half against that defense that had what over 70 sacks this season. I have to give him credence for that. I know he lost the Bucks, but he had no offensive line and he had receivers that weren't catching the ball, which is odd. But he was throwing on his knees and all that kind of stuff. His first Super Bowl, he didn't play too well, but he still beat a vaunted 49ers defense, even though you could say, well, the 49ers, they might have lost that game with Jimmy G. So I just feel like Patrick Mahomes, at this point, his resume, having back to back MVPs, 2 Super Bowl MVPs, um, throwing for like 5,000 yards, being able to win with 2 different rosters, one with Tyreek Hill and the other without Tyreek Hill. I just think that it's something spectacular. But era wise, I look at Joe Montana, what he had to endure, and then I look at Tom Brady, and him coming back down from 28-3, him beating a legendary Legion of Boom defense as well. I think the black marks on him is losing with the undefeated roster, and not scoring 17 points at all in any of the Super Bowls with the Giants. That matters to me. So if you want to put like a Montana ahead of him or whatever, I'm not even opposed to that, even though I believe Brady's the GOAT. But it just depends on what you like. What's your flavor of the week? So I got him 3, and then I round up my 5 with Marino and Peyton Manning. I actually like those guys over some other quarterbacks. So, but yeah, I know your list is completely different, but I have them in my top 5. And football's not like my number one sport, guys. But yeah, I got them in my top 5 at 3 right now. So we'll see how it goes, man.
And for me, man, I feel like I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this because it's not really.
It's your list, man. Your list.
It's
Speak your
it's
heart.
my list, but at the same time, I think people are so
Caught in the moment.
they're so. For one thing, I hate about the NFL when it comes to NFL talk. When it comes to the quarterback, we give them way too much credit.
True.
Like, for instance, I just got done having this conversation with someone. We're talking about Derek Carr.
Okay.
Derek Carr is being punished for not winning, but his defense has never been above even a 30 in the defensive ranking. Meanwhile, Tom Brady's been on the other way, where very rarely, out of 20 seasons, I think he's had 4 seasons at most where his defense was not top 10.
Yeah.
Now, when you compared him to someone who played in the same era as him, Peyton Manning, how many defenses did Peyton Manning have where he had a top 10 defense? The few times he did, he made it to Super Bowls.
Right.
Or if not an AFC championship game. So I think that when we start to talk about certain things, you got to give credit to the things that are around him. When Peyton Manning didn't play for a full season, they got the number 1 pick and got Andrew Luck. When the Patriots lose Tom Brady, they go 10-6 but don't make the playoffs. Which is just one of those things that just rarely ever happens. So it's like we have some historical things that are happening. That's the only way that they don't make the playoffs. But Peyton Manning literally got a whole nother generational quarterback.
Yeah, that's crazy.
When he got hurt. So you miss Pat Mahomes, you put Chad Henne in. They still win a game.
That's the thing that's
in the playoffs.
The system.
And what they were doing before they got Mahomes. They just weren't getting over the hump. So I'm not here to say that, like, because the plays that Mahomes do, the no looks that Stafford was doing before that, but now he's getting the credit for, it's still a feat that you're able to do it at that such a high level. His creativity, the guttiness to have a 30-yard run on a high ankle sprain in the playoffs to decide a game. I think that it can't be overshadowed by anything, but at the same time, if you go and you look at the certain accomplishments of other people, Johnny Unitas played so long ago and threw for 40,000 yards.
That's my dad's favorite quarterback, Johnny Unitas, Baltimore Colts, everyone.
And then Pat Mahomes is only at 24,000 yards. Now, eventually he's going to pass him because everybody on this list above him did. But it's like at some point, we can't forget these people that played in an era where they weren't throwing the ball. Like in this game that Pat Mahomes played in, he threw the ball 27 times.
Right.
20 years ago, that was the average. And the typical quarterback threw the ball 30 times. So you got to think about when we start talking about these eras, which is also what Trent Dilfer was alluding to. They're throwing the ball so much more, and you can't crush the quarterback. So I think when we start to have these conversations, like me, Peyton Manning is my GOAT. There is no changing my idea because I think that although Tom Brady, and I got him at 2, I think Tom Brady is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when your defense, like just this year alone, Tom Brady's getting credit for coming back and winning games, but the defense is holding the other team to 17 points.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Derek Carr is scoring 28 points and losing 31-28. And so I think that when we start to talk about the Super Bowl and things of that nature, we got to start talking about the totality of it and think about what it is that that particular player is doing. Because
Yeah,
Mahomes got outplayed by Hurts,
I thought Jalen Hurts was the best player in the field on Sunday.
right?
Just period. From the film to the
And so,
stats,
but all we're going to talk about is Mahomes and that holding
Mhm.
call.
Mhm.
So for
So
me,
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
think he has definitely made his way into the top 10. I could see him as high as 5, but I'm not putting him over at this point yet. I'm not putting him over Drew Brees. I'm not putting him over Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning.
So you have him over
So for
Elway.
me, I do have him over Elway because Elway wasn't throwing the rock like that.
Okay. Okay.
He
Yeah,
just
he
was
had TV.
he
He
just
had
was
TV.
more mobile
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah.
and
I don't have a
and a
problem
great
with your
offense
list.
around him.
Right. I don't have a problem with your list. So it's cool.
And then
All right.
next up, hold up, I gotta do a little
I
bit of
think we're doing. Are
scrolling.
we
My fault,
biggest
y'all.
winners and losers?
But we
I
got the
think we
trade
are.
deadline.
Yep.
We got the trade deadline that just popped up or came and went. It was some craziness over the weekend, or I think last Thursday.
Yes,
Got all
sir.
types
Yes,
of
sir.
notifications, and this person going this way, this person going this way. We got the major move of Kyrie Irving starting it off,
Yeah.
but then also on top of that, we get his teammate or former teammate Kevin Durant moving to the Suns.
Hmm.
But who are some of your winners and losers as I put up the graphic or the video of some moves that happened over the trade deadline? Who are
Okay. So there's actually a couple different biggest winners and a couple different losers. Obviously, we have to see how things eventually play out. As weeks and stuff go by. But I'm actually going to hit you guys with some nice underrated signings first, real quick. The Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets. Why I like that was because going into the season, Ralph, I felt that they needed, and they definitely did need a backup center to Nikola Jokic that could, provide them with some rebounding, some scoring punch, and some defense. They wound up getting an older DeAndre Jordan, despite all the moves that they made, last year, trading away a Monte Morris and a Will Barton and converting that into a 3-and-D guy in KCP, and getting a Bruce Brown, a guy that I know we both like, right? And the return of Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. So where I'm like, that makes them lethal, but what could make them unstoppable is if you get a backup center, right? And so you get a backup center, a young backup center, a 24-year-old, I believe he's 24, and Thomas Bryant, who was averaging like what 11 and whatever, over in with the Lakers, right? And he was playing with the Wizards. So you get a Thomas Bryant. I loved that signing. I feel like they secured it. Now it just comes down to health. Jamal Murray's been out. Phoenix is obviously the big trade that we talk about, getting a KD. You lose a Jay Crowder, you lose a McCall Bridges, and you lose a 3-point sniper and Cameron Johnson. I did not like them having to lose those pieces per se because their defense. Now you lose your two best defenders, right? Because Mikal Bridges was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting last season. Some people thought he should have won it. However, it's KD. Even McCall Bridges like it's KD. I would have traded myself as well. KD, what does he do? I ain't gonna tell you what he does. So why did I even ask the question, right? But he's seamless fit. He's a seamless fit in any system. He's scalable. He's a seamless fit in any system. So you can plug and play with him. Oh, you have KD at the 4, and you kept DeAndre Ayton. You traded a superstar, a first ballot Hall of Famer, and got no stars back. So you get KD. Oh, and guess who else is coming with us? TJ Warren. I can get you 20 off the bench. So you get me a TJ Warren and a Kevin Durant. You put that with the point guy, uh, um, uh, CP3. You get Devin Booker, and all three of those guys are actually, I believe, in the tops and closing of the fourth quarter. So that's just really, really lethal. Yes, they're a little top heavy, but I think that given the drama that they had going into the season surrounding them this season, they made out nicely. And then another trade I like was Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron James actually just needs to get on the court now. But you get a D'Angelo Russell, you got younger, you move an erratic, inefficient point guard who was turnover prone and older, and Russell Westbrook, you turn that into D'Lo. D'Lo knows the Lakers culture. He's matured. He can run pick and roll. He can stretch the floor with a three. You pair that with the trade and Humaji Mara that you got, you get an underrated 3 and D wing in Jared Vanderbilt. So you get him. So you also continue to get younger. And they got Malik Beasley. Stay away from Scottie Pippen Jr. and you'll be okay. But he's someone that can shoot the three. So I like the Lakers move. And then my last biggest winner, I'm going to go with because there was a couple different things, but I like the New York Knicks pairing college teammate Josh Hart with Jalen Brunson. They played at Villanova. They won a championship together. So I really like that as one of my biggest winners. So yeah, and I'll swing it back to you.
I think that I think it's tough. I think it's gonna be hard to really say until games are actually played and you see how stuff
Exactly.
works. But
Yeah.
I do think that the Suns and what they were able to do, you get KD, but
Mhm.
then you kind of deplete yourself while trying to make that move where you lose a sharpshooter, like you said, you lose a defensive guy.
Yeah.
But like I showed in the graphic, you trade out Sarge for Darius Baisley. Athletic, big,
I
good
like that.
size.
Yeah.
I like I like that move. Then you grab up, you snatch up Terrence Ross.
Mm.
While also in that KD trade, you bring TJ Warren with you, someone who can get you 20 off the bench. Terrence Ross
Hmm.
can go get you 20 off the bench.
Hmm.
He can hit big shots. So you can also pair him with people, and depending on what type of lineup you run, you're able to keep
Yeah.
you're able to keep DeAndre Ayton because KD wants to play with a Chris Paul. So obviously that leadership, that head figure, he gets to step right in and just worry about hoop, where I don't got to worry about being the leader of the team. And so I think that that puts them, all of that together puts them in the head seat. I've been sitting here this whole time trying to figure out like
They just
who
gotta
would
stay
I say,
healthy. That's the thing.
who is somebody I would say is a loser in this though.
Oh, I got one for you. I got a couple, but
Who?
Joe Tsai is a loser.
Yo,
And
yeah,
that sounds like you calling him a loser, but no. But yeah, Joe Tsai is a loser because you had a big three in James Harden, KD, Kyrie, and you got
yeah,
nothing for it. They played 16 games total together. You lose KD and you don't get a superstar or a star player back. I know you did get picks and all that stuff, but like you got less than what you probably could have got for him, it seems, and you lose Kyrie Irving, and you're stuck with Ben Simmons and draft picks. And what has Ben Simmons giving you? So I got to say Joe Tsai is a loser, and I'm going to say the Miami Heat, Ralph, because the Miami Heat
yeah,
stood pat. I don't know if you heard there was a thing I believe by Clutch Points allegedly where Pat Riley fell asleep when they were trying to get a trade for it was a wing piece. I feel bad because I need to have it, but it was a player that they could have got. They were saying, and Pat Riley was allegedly guys asleep and wasn't able to okay the trade. But you got to look at it from the fact that Brooklyn has been broken down, right? So if Brooklyn is broken down, who are the top guys in the East? It's the Bucks and the Celtics, right? So who's going to be that? And then you obviously have the 76ers there at a third, So who's going to be that fourth and fifth team? And a Miami Heat team that we just saw in the Eastern Conference Finals, staying pat and continuously, once again, not doing anything, but we kept Tyler Hero. No shade to Tyler Hero, but you need another shot creator or get a point guard. Maybe flip Kyle Lowry, send him back to Toronto, something like that. I just felt like the
yeah.
Miami Heat standing pat. So that's just me. But if you have any other losers, go at it, man. But Miami Heat and Joe Tsai.
Nah, I don't really have anybody, man, because I'm gonna get into why I don't think that the Nets are losers
Okay.
in this next segment.
Okay.
But next up, we got the NBA Power Rankings, Brody. You
Mm.
know me, I like to go 10 down, all the way to
Team.
the top. To we going all the way up. So I'm gonna go
All right, you
first
guys set
too
it
on
off.
this one. So we
All
got the
right, go ahead.
Dallas Mavericks with the new look Mavs. Now, I do want to preface my power rankings is where their record is,
Right, right, right.
combined with the team itself and how well they've been playing as of lately.
That's fair.
So when I was going through this, there's two teams on my list that are not on ESPN's top 10 list, but I think that they're taking too much in consideration about names and of such. And
Mm.
so I got the Dallas Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
They're still number one in offensive rating, but at the same time, it just depends on how much defense can they. I mean, how much offense can they score,
Mm.
and versus the defense. Because I think Jason Kidd gets them to play defense at a pretty high level as a team. It's just can they get those stops in that last minute? But
Mm.
for all those reasons I just mentioned, you got Luka, you got Kyrie, you have Christian Wood, you got JaVale McGee. You have pieces where you'll be able to get those stops and you'll be able to create enough offense where I think that they'll be in good shape. Also, I got the Brooklyn Nets at 9.
Mm.
Here's the reason why I think that they're not as big a loser as people talk about. I understand what it looked like they might have had when they had James, Kyrie, and KD to where they are now. But I also think that this team can remind me a lot of that Brooklyn Nets team before they got KD and Kyrie, where they had a Spencer Dinwiddie, they had a
Mm.
Karis LeVert, they had good young pieces where you got a Mikal Bridges who can guard the best player but also still go for 20. You got a
True.
Cam Johnson, sharpshooter, getting more opportunities. Cam Thomas has showed you what he can do when he's the focal part of the offense. Nick Claxton, most improved player, and
Yes.
and
Shout out to
possibly a
Claxton.
defensive player of the year candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have someone where Ben Simmons, this is his opportunity to really show what he can do with no pressure.
Mm.
Now, at this point, it is what it is. What can he do
Yeah.
with this team? But Jacques Vaughn is going to get them to play defense at a high level, and you have a bunch of guys that can step into roles,
Yeah.
and they're not going to have that pressure of having to worry about winning championships. So at 10, I got the Mavs, and at 9, I got the Nets.
Okay.
And we really only got
Very
8 minutes,
well
so we
laid
got to
out.
make this quick.
All right. So I got the Mavs at 10 for the same reasons as you said. They're 2-0 without Luca, 0-2 with Luca, but it's because they have some spacing issues and they need to realize that Kyrie Irving is a closer. It's going to be a period orientation. I think they'll be better near the end of the season and their defense isn't that great. But at 9, I got the Miami Heat. They are 3-0 this week, Ralph. Shout out to the Miami Heat. They're 3-0 this week. So they've been on a nice little run. So I got them at number 9. Who do you got at 8 and 7?
So at 8, I got the Kings. Offensive rating is going crazy. The thing that
Mm-hmm.
surprises me is their defense and Mike Brown being a defensive coach, but their spacing has been really good. Their
Mm-hmm.
ability to have versatility within the offense, where you can use a De'Aaron Fox and run your offense. You can use a Sabonis and run your offense. And his ability to pass out of that high elbow area, while also you can use him in a high pick and roll, pick and pop. He could be your back to the basket guy. So I think that your versatility to be able to score on every level
Yeah.
with the addition of a herder. You got what was it? What's the boy they just brought in? The rookie, your boy. I
Oh,
can't think of his name right
no.
now.
Yeah, man, he has like the sharp facial features. I know who you're talking about. I can't even think of his name right now. I feel bad.
I can't think of him right now. But the Kings at 8, and I got the Grizzlies at 7. They have not
Okay.
been playing very well as of lately. They are 3-7 in the last 10 games, but they
Mm-hmm.
play with pace. Their net rating is amazing, and defensive rating is really good. So I think all of these together give you, especially when you have those superstars that can go get you a bucket. They have that mentality that is us against the world. And so I got Kings at 8, Grizzlies at 7.
Okay, well then that keeps my portion short because I got the same thing, but I got it in reverse. I have the Grizzlies at 8 because how they've been playing, but John's been doing his thing though. And then I got the what you call I got the Kings at 7, so I got them right underneath another Western Conference team. All right, so 6-5 for you.
And so at 6, I got the Suns. The Suns are on that won 7 games out of the last 10 games.
Right, right.
The
Okay,
addition of a KD, the addition of Ross, Baisley,
okay,
like I just mentioned, they're going to be a new look team, but I think that Monty Williams is still going to have them playing at a high level. You still have your core pieces. It's just what can the role players know their roles, and can we get KD back with
okay.
enough time to really gain some chemistry? Up next, I got the Sixers bringing up or rounding out that top 5. They're 7-3. Embiid has been dominant. James has been looking closer to that James Harden from Houston. They play defense
Mhm.
at a high level and offense, so it's like they're just a complete team. They're within the top 10 on offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating, and they play with a slower pace so James can get his pick and roll game and Joel Embiid can dominate. And that's my
Okay.
Suns at 6. Sixers at
Yeah.
5.
Okay. So I got the Suns at 6 as well. So everything you mentioned, but at 5, I actually have the Denver Nuggets. They did lose to Orlando Magic recently, and then you see obviously you get the news of the KD trade and Jamal Murray, being out. So I think that based off of them having to be whole yet again, right? But I think in the long run they'll be okay. But you got to watch out for that injury bug. I got them at 5, and then at 4. Are we? Did I already say 6? No, no. I said Suns at 6. Excuse me, and then I said
Yeah.
Denver Nuggets at 5. So yeah.
Sun
So
six,
then we get to the
Nuggets,
4 and
and then
3.
give me 4 since you're doing it.
Yeah. So 4, I got the 76ers for all the reasons that you mentioned. And I know Harden got snubbed, and Embiid felt some type of way. So I got them at 4.
So
Last
I got the
3.
Cavs. I got the Cavs at 4. They're playing really good
Okay.
ball as a team.
Hmm.
But they're another team that's top 10 in offensive rating, number 1 in defensive rating. Net
Hmm.
rating is number 2, but they play at a slower pace so they can get to the spots because when you're playing defense at such a high level, you don't need to really get that many possessions in. And when I say pace, it's pretty much they're at 96.1 points per 100 possessions. Next up, I
Okay.
got the Bucks, 10-0 in the last 10 games. They're on a 10-game winning streak. Giannis's usage rate has been going through the roof, but they're playing at such a high level. Defense is number
Mm,
2. Their net rating is 6th in the league, and they play at a higher pace. So they're definitely going to put up points while also being able to get stops in the end.
okay. So I got Cavs at 3, 4-0 this week. They erased a 13 deficit against your Bulls. I'm sorry, Ralph. But
My
they've been
mom was
playing
at
really
that
good.
game.
Shout out to moms. And then at 2, I got the Bucks. This was kind of back and forth interchanging, but for all the reasons you said, 10-0 win streak. They went undefeated on their road trip. They beat the Clippers. They beat the Lakers back to back. Giannis is averaging 32 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 7 assists, 58% shooting. But also peep this. This is a little stat that I did. I did some digging on Stat News. The Bucks have a 26-14 record without Chris Middleton this season, opposed to a 7-9 record last season. They traded for Jay Crowder. They got rid of the dead weight that we talked about, and Ibaka and George Hill. So I think they've done everything that we talked about. But I got the a team ahead of them at 1. I'll just round it off. Boston Celtics, 4-game win streak. 3 of the 4 games came without Jalen Brown and Marcus Smart. 3rd in offensive efficiency, 5th in defensive efficiency. I'm going to keep them at number 1, but it was close.
Yeah, I
There
feel
you
you.
go.
Same thing here, man. Their net rating is at 1, like you just said. Their paces, they're right there in the middle of the pack when it comes to pace. But when you got a Jason Tatum and the depth on that team
Yeah,
that they have, led
very
by
light.
Jason Tatum, you're gonna get Brown back.
Hmm.
Smart, I don't remember what his injury was, but it looked like a knee and it looked kind of serious. But I don't
Yeah, it was a
remember
knee.
hearing the timetable as far as that.
Yeah, it
But
was a knee.
like,
But
what did you say?
I said it was a knee. Yeah,
Oh, it was a knee. All right.
yeah.
So let us know what you think about our power rankings. Thank you all for watching, tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. Rihanna still looks scrumptious even while pregnant. And we love you, Riri. Go buy Fenty. But we out of here. Make sure you follow us on all the socials. And we about this thing. Happy Valentine's Day, y'all. Love, peace, and
Peace,
chicken grease.
peace, peace and love.